Libra, welcome to Yellow Cardinal Tarot with me. My name is Carol, and this is going to be a general reading for you for mid-month July 2025. And in particular, I thought that for this check-in that I would look at a pattern that's showing up for you in these last few weeks of July. And patterns are really important on our healing journey because it's sort of the universe's way of waking us up to, well, trying to wake us up to what needs healing. And because if we don't heal the original source of this pattern, it's just going to keep showing up. And as humans, we have a tendency to push it down and shove it away and hope it doesn't show up again. But, you know, the same toxic people keep on showing up in our life, whether it's we meet them at our workspace, our intimate partners, people in our family. And we kind of wonder, why is this showing up for me? Situations occur that are repeating. Emotions that are coming up that are repeating, and so we're going to look at what it is that's repeating for you that you need to look at. And because in part 2 we're going to look at, okay, what needs healing, what's coming up from your shadow, your unconscious, because believe it or not, it's the unconscious that's manifesting the majority of our external patterns that we're noticing in our life. And so it's very important to look at what is coming up for healing. So we'll look at that, and then finally in the last part I will give you some advice from the tarot as to how you can start to begin to heal this, because remember that our healing journey, it's a process. I don't have a magical cure for you, and neither does the tarot, but it will tell you where you can begin to, what you can begin to work on. So for today's reading, I'm going to be using the Curious Travels deck, and then I'll be using the Rider Radiant Weight deck. It looks like that, and to clarify. So let's begin with the pattern that's showing up for you in the end of July. What pattern is showing up for Libra in the end of July? Just one card. Oh, gives me a whole bunch here, but I'm going to turn, we're going to look at this one. It's a surprise. It is the Hierophant card. Interesting card to begin with. And then we're going to look at what's coming up from your shadow that's driving this pattern, that's having the most impact on this pattern. And this time it wants to, and I have to take them. So 2 of Swords and the 5 of Cups in reverse. And then I'm going to finally look at some advice from the tarot. As you know, how can you begin to heal this? How can Libra begin to heal this? Just one card, please. These cards aren't fitting this morning for some reason. There we go. One card. One card. There we go. Had some problems with a card at the end, and here we go. So the 2 of Pentacles. Advice from the tarot. Okay, can you tell me some more about the Hierophant? A couple cards for the Hierophant. One more for the Hierophant. Whew. All right, so we have a few. I think I'll go with them. I normally wouldn't, but it's like, okay, they seem to want to come out. Queen of Cups in reverse. That was the second one. The first one was the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. And then these 2 cards that slipped in were the Page of Swords and the Fool card behind it. And tell me some more about the 2 of Swords and the 5 of Cups here. A couple cards. It's funny that was the area that a lot of cards wanted to come out. So there's a lot of talking that wants to get the Hangman was turned over for some reason. I'm going to start that over, but I know I just didn't do it, so I'm not very sure where it came from. Hangman's about feeling comfortable in your own skin, and I'm wondering maybe if that's what this reading is about, you know, getting you to a place where you start to feel comfortable in your own skin. I mean, I think that's the place where we all want to go. Couple cards for the Two of Swords and the Five of Cups. There we go. There's one. And there we go. There's another. So what do we have? We have the Seven of Cups in reverse and the Four of Swords. And finally, the Two of Pentacles. Couple cards for that. One. Magician and the Chariot. Two major arcana cards here, powerful ones. So let's start off with the pattern that's showing up for you, and it's the Hierophant in reverse. In an upright position, the Hierophant talks about this individual that's teaching these two people underneath here. And in any situation when you're learning something, especially when it's something you're passionate about, you really take it in. Like you're almost like a sponge, and especially when you're a young child. I mean, kids are sponges when they learn, right? The Hierophant speaks about, what are those things that you were taught when you were younger? Could have been from authority figures around you, your caretakers, your parents, your grandparents, teachers. What is it that you were taught when you were younger that really shaped you as a person? In other words, what is it? How are you wired when you were younger? And I think it's really important for us to realize that. And when we get older, we realize, sometimes there are parts of us that need rewiring, maybe an entire part of us, especially our brain. We have to rewire it because it's been wired in a certain way. And it's in reverse here because I think there's a real either a fear on your part or a resistance to looking at, how are you wired? And I think it's really important because it's in reverse. And it's like, this needs to be looked at. When in an upright position, I say to you, let's look at this. But when it comes in reverse, it's like, we really need to look at this. And I know there's a resistance on your part, but it's this whole question is, how are you wired? And I think that's going to come up for you in the next couple weeks of July, and maybe start to pay attention to, thoughts that go through your head and the way you think about certain things. And, why is it that I think that? Like, why do I think black when maybe it could be white? Or maybe why is my thinking so black and white? Maybe there could be a gray area here that I need to look at. And so I think it's really a time for you to start to look at, hey, why do I think like that? Who taught me that? Who told me that? So let's look at some clarifiers for that underneath. You have the Wheel of Fortune here, and it's in reverse. In an upright position, the Wheel of Fortune talks about the wheel of life, right? Things happening, the Ferris wheel that I always talk about, where, it stopped, it's turning, you get on, and it stops, and you let people on, and then you keep going. And, so our own wheel of life kind of has situations that happen to us where it makes us kind of stop and go, whoa, and so I think here that your Wheel of Fortune, your Ferris wheel, your life is kind of like stuck at the moment, right? If it's in reverse, it's kind of like, whoa, it's stuck, and maybe there's been a big change of circumstance for you where you're kind of going, that has made you start to think. I mean, the whole world right now is kind of like the Ferris wheel's kind of upside down here, where I'm hoping that it's making a lot of people start to think about some things. And maybe there's something in your life where something has happened that has made you kind of go, whoa, and so that's coming up for you. And the Queen of Cups is next. And the Queen in my deck, I just always look to see if there's a masculine. There's not a king here, but the queens in my deck represent the feminine side to us. We all have a masculine side. Our masculine side is our ego. The feminine side is these beautiful feminine qualities that we have. Doesn't matter, it has nothing to do with the gender, your gender. But there are these qualities that have been buried for years and they're starting to come up. And this particular one is the Queen of Cups. And she's the queen of emotions. And so this is coming up for you. And I'm seeing that there's a lot of emotions here that are coming up for you around maybe this change of circumstance for you, around, realizing, how was I wired? And a lot of emotions are coming up here. But she's in reverse. And so maybe there's a real, like I said, a hesitancy, a fear of you to getting into some of those emotions, right? When she's in reverse, she brings a lot of hopelessness, and she can bring a lot of ungrounded anger. And that's the anger where we spew out on people and things, and it's like, why did I do that? I didn't mean to do that. That's not me. That's the ungrounded anger. Anger is an amazing emotion because it brings about change in our life, but it has to be a grounded anger, right? I get my ungrounded anger out on my computer. I get angry at people, angry at things, angry at life on my computer, because that way it doesn't spill out on people anymore. Once in a while it will, and I'll go, ooh, that's old behavior, that's ungrounded behavior, and I'll go back to my computer and I'll spew it out on my computer. And so this is she's coming out for you to say, there's a lot of emotions here that are going on, and it's quite normal that, if you're feeling this hopelessness and this ungrounded anger around this, because there's something here that's stirring for you. You have a page that's coming up, a Page of Swords, and maybe this will explain some things. The pages of my deck are our inner children, and we can have more than one inner child. I know mainstream psychology says we just have one, but I've been on my own intensive healing journey for a number of years now. And I know that I have more than one inner child. Our inner children hold our trauma, they hold our memories, they hold our big emotions. And they'll tug at our pant leg and they'll say, listen, I need healing. All our inner children need healing. They hold on to these big emotions when we were younger that they couldn't handle. And so it's up to us now to feel these emotions for them now that we're an adult. This particular page has the sword, the one single sword of authenticity, the sword of your truth, Libra. And it's the one that knows who you were, your authentic self, when you were about 4, 5, 6 years old. And it's coming up here now. So there's something coming up here that holds, there's a part of you that holds your truth. And I started off with how you were wired, and you're going to start to look at that. Because sometimes we need to rewire, undo that wiring so we can get back to our truth, another layer of our truth. And then you have the Fool card here. And this is a wonderful card to come out. I mean, it doesn't come out often, and it can come out anywhere it wants in the reading. Because then when it does, we need to pay attention to it because it's like, this is the Fool, and he can, jump off that cliff, but he has like the innocence of a child. And me, this is about the innocence of a child, right? Where you just kind of took things in as a sponge. But now the universe is saying it wants you to give you back that innocence and say, you know what? Take a leap off of this cliff right here. Take a leap and a jump into these emotions and see what it is. See what this wiring is that's coming up for you at the end of July. And you know what? The biggest thing about this card, it says it wants you to have faith that the universe has your back. Have faith that the universe has your back in all of this. And that's the hard part, because we're so afraid that, these emotions, especially our ego, is so afraid that these emotions are going to eat us alive if we start to jump into them. But the universe says, no, you're here. It's time for you to have faith and take that leap. And it's almost going to push you off that cliff. And so let's go to your shadow, your unconscious, the part that is manifesting this, the part that is impacting this pattern to come up again, right? And it's interesting. It's not something that is new to you. You've been here before, and maybe you've been here before, but this time we're going a little bit deeper, right? We're going to dig just a little bit more. And when we start to dig at our past, we dig in layers. That's our trauma, our memories, our emotions. They're in layers. And so what's What's going on? What's happening? What's the healing that's coming up from your shadow? You start off with this Two of Swords. That's clarified quickly by a Five of Cups. And so I can see now when you were younger. This is when you were younger, a child, an adolescent. Here's the Two of Swords. I think you learned at a young age to put your emotions away. Here's this individual here. Usually it's someone that's sitting here in the Rider-Waite deck, but has his two swords crossed over his heart. Even over the moon. Like the moon's about our intuition, about our inner knowing, our inner guidance. It's somebody that in the Rider-Waite has put a blindfold on. It's like there's no way that you want to touch anything to do with your emotions, right? And you really are up in your head. And when we are younger and things happen to us, and when we have these big emotions like anger, like hopelessness, like fear or grief or shame, when those come up, we can't handle those when we're younger. And so the ego will come up and rip us out of our body, because that's where our emotions are. And it'll put us up in our head so that we don't have to feel anymore. And so this is you when you were younger, where you learned at a very young age not to feel those emotions. They were dangerous or they were too big for you to feel. And behind it comes the Five of Cups. And it's in reverse here. And so in an upright position, the Five of Cups speaks about this individual that is focused on these three cups right here. And so this cup really speaks about someone that's focused on the three spilled cups. Those are three emotions, three big emotions. Lots of emotion here. Someone that looks like they're in like a real dark night of the soul, right? That black cloak. Not seeing all this water. Water talks about emotions that are meant to flow in, and we process them and they flow out. But yours got stuck when you were younger, right? And then this bridge over here, not even looking that there's a bridge here, not even seeing a way out. Well, when you were younger, you didn't see a way out. There was no way out for you. And so you felt a lot of hopelessness when you were younger. I talked about this queen here, about she could be, she can feel a lot of hopelessness. If you've been sitting in or getting, in and out of bouts of your depression or hopelessness, loneliness sometimes, it's all coming back from a time when you were younger, when you weren't able to deal with these emotions. And so you felt a lot of hopelessness. And that's what we do. A lot of times, we speak about anger and hopelessness, depression being the two sides of the coin. Well, when we can't get angry when we're younger, when we're taught, don't you dare get angry, our go-to will be depression. And that was and has been and still is my go-to, because I was not allowed to touch my anger. I was warned over and over again and threatened. My life was threatened not to take out my anger. And so my go-to was always hopelessness. And so you'll find that you can go back and forth between those two. And so I don't know why I was meant to say that to you. Maybe that's your situation. But we're still talking about your childhood here. So these big emotions that you learn not to touch. Underneath the Seven of Cups comes here. And in an upright position, this talks about this individual that's looking at all these cups of emotions, right? Lots of emotions here. And I think at a certain point in time where, they were too much for you. And so you see all the clouds in this card, this individual looking at all those weird things coming out of the cups, right? A lot of weird shit can go around in your head when you're younger and you don't know how to handle all of these emotions. Well, like I said, your ego will pull you out of your body and put you up in your head. And you know what it does to you? This is my card of dissociation. This is my card of dissociation. You had no other way out but to dissociate up in your head. Dissociation means that we spend our time in our head. We don't go in our body. We don't feel our emotions. We're not living from our body. We're living from our head. We're living from our ego self. That's dissociation. And we think, our ego likes to makes us believe that that's our real self, but it's not our true self. Our true self is our true self. It's our higher self. It's not our true self. And then Four of Swords comes as a last card for you. So as a youngster, adolescent, a young person, really young, you learn to dissociate. And the Four of Swords talks about when it's not in the shadow, it's a card of you need to get rest. But there was no rest for you. The only rest that you had, the only, I'm going to say, consolation, the only thing that you could turn to was to dissociate. This dissociation was what gave you relief from the situation that you were in when you were a child. And so I think your normal go-to is to stay up in your head. And that's the way that you were wired, to stay up here instead of going into our body. And but I think the universe is saying, you know, here's the chance, here's the trust that when you get into your body and start to touch those big emotions that you couldn't feel here, because this is how you're going to heal. And so what's the advice from the tarot before I get too far? Well, it wants you to look at the Two of Pentacles, which is this individual that's juggling, right? Ungrounded. Look at his feet. They're not flat on the ground. You know, we need to keep our feet flat on the ground. Look at how you distract yourself. Look at how you keep yourself busy. This individual is multitasking all the time. And usually when you keep busy all the time, it's very fascinating when I hear people. I've retired from teaching from a 30-year career. I think I've been retired for about 6 years. And I was listening to this TikTok, or I don't know what it was the other day. It was just really quick, and these two women were walking, and they were talking about, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I would do when I were to retire. I mean, I know someone that's retired. This is what she was saying. I know someone that's retired. And she talks about how she does something every single day. And then one woman said, well, that's what I think what I would have to do is to keep busy every single day because I would go insane. Well, people have this belief that you have to keep busy all the time in order to keep yourself sane. And I think this is what you really need to look at. I believe it was in reverse. I can't remember. But it's like it's time for you to look at how are you trying to keep yourself distracted in your head? Because when you keep yourself distracted, busy, that just keeps us up in our head. Ego wants us to keep busy as hell. When I find myself busy, and I think, oh wow, I've had a productive day. I did this and this and this and this. I go, oh wait a minute here. My ego's out. My ego's out, and there's something here that I'm trying to not look at. You know, I'm trying to push down, and that's exactly why we keep ourselves busy. And so, the advice from the tarot is maybe we need to become less busy. Because here's the Chariot card that comes out. You have two major arcana cards that came out here. The Chariot card is a card about this individual that has all their life and notice how everything's stone, right? I think it's been going on for a long time. And they've been trying to guide these two sphinxes to go. And these sphinxes are made of stone. They're not interested. First of all, they're not even looking straight ahead. Secondly, there's no reins here and they're not moving. And so the Chariot card talks about movement. Absolutely. It's a card of movement, but it's not the physical movement. This is somebody that's been trying to control things from their mind for too long now. And they finally hit a stone wall. And it's the universe is saying, you've been trying to control this for way too long now. And now it's time for a different type of movement, not physical movement. It's time now for inner movement. And that means we're going to do the inward journey, and we're going to go inwards and start to ground into our body, get into our body, because that's where our emotions are, because it's time for us to heal. And though there's a part of you that go, no way, I can't do this. I don't know where to start. I can't do this. Magician card comes out here. Beautiful card to come out for you to end with. This magician is very, very grounded. Notice how he has his wand up in the air and he has his feet on the earth, right? He's grounded, and that's very important. That's the number one rule that we need to follow, is to get grounded. He can manifest anything he wants. He has all his cup, he has all his cup, his sword, his pentacle, his missing one. One. And he has everything at his disposal, which means this magician has everything in him. You have everything in you, believe it or not. You know what your next step is. You know what you're meant to do, but you have to get grounded into your body before you can manifest anything you want. People talk about manifestation, and yes, they manifest, but they don't do it in a grounded way. And sometimes they'll manifest things that are not meant for them. But this one says you have everything in you to do this. Everything. And when I started my own healing journey years ago, my life coach told me, you have everything in you. And that's not what I wanted to hear, because I wanted all the answers to come from her. And it's like, no, your answers are in here. You know what to do. And so Libra, I'm going to leave you with that. You know what to do, but you have to get grounded. You have to get back in your body. This is a beautiful reading for you. I want you to have compassion for yourself for what you're working through. This is the most difficult journey of your life, but it's the most important one. And I'm going to leave you with your July 2025 reading, and I'll see you in August. Bye.